What happens when your spiritual awakening fails? The call came at 3:12 a.m. He whispered, "I think I'm dissolving." In the bathroom mirror, his face felt miles away. The ceiling fan sounded like a choir. Outside, a siren braided with a certainty. He'd been chosen. By sunrise, he hadn't slept in 48 hours and had emailed his boss a manifesto about love ending capitalism. 2 days later, his partner packed a bag. Here's the part nobody tells you. For the first 72 hours, a powerful awakening and a dangerous breakdown can look almost identical. Clinicians call this a spiritual emergency. We'll map the 3-stage collapse, how a peak turns to overwhelm, to fear, to dysfunction, why communities and clinics miss it, and the recovery protocol that brings people back. To see how it spins out, we need to rewind to the moment it peaks. The peak that breaks you, the triggering event. It doesn't start with madness. It starts with meaning, so dense it feels like oxygen-rich air. People describe it as a clean click. Reality aligns, grief lifts, and for a few hours the world makes sense with a kindness you can taste. One woman got the text, "We're done," stepped into a parking lot, and everything brightened. She saw a crow tilt its head and felt a thread pull through her chest. The break didn't sting, it revealed. Another man walked out of a meditation hall at 2 a.m. after a 10-day retreat, heard sprinklers hiss, and knew every droplet was singing his name. Quick context before we ride the wave. A Brown University research program catalogued 59 distinct meditation-related difficulties: sleep collapse, dissociation, panic, perceptual changes, with 26 factors that shape severity. And since 1994, the DSM has included religious or spiritual problem. Version 62.89, a way to flag meaning without erasing risk. Translation: powerful experiences are real, and bodies still have limits. Here's the quiet risk inside that beauty. Arousal climbs and doesn't come down. Sleep gets trimmed, first to 6 hours, then 4, then none. Sensory input turns from information into insistence. Colors insist. Sounds insist. The neighbor's porch light is suddenly a lighthouse. Meanwhile, the boundary between in here and out there thins. Thoughts feel less like private guesses and more like public announcements from the universe. A billboard says "begin again," and it lands like a direct instruction, not marketing copy. If you've got certain history, the slope gets steeper. Unresolved trauma means the nervous system already lives near the guardrail. A family line with hypermania or bipolar vulnerability means your brain learns quickly how to ride without brakes. Weeks of intensive practice, silent retreat, prolonged fasting, breathwork marathons, pour fuel on a system that's already revved. Add guru pressure to surrender more, and isolation from everyday rhythms, and the liftoff is locked in. Under the hood, the body's alarm systems are lighting up. Dopamine, the "this matters" signal, leans on the gas. Your brain starts overtagging everything as important. It guesses meaning everywhere, and then finds proof in coincidences. Routines that anchor your clock, light, food, sleep, fall apart. Without sleep, your perception gets jumpy. What felt like union at midnight becomes a shaky noon. Social context can accelerate it. Retreat centers normalize odd states. People speak in metaphors that sound literal when you're sleep deprived. You are already the sky lands like a weather report, not a metaphor. Fasting reduces glucose stability. The body interprets it as stress, and stress sharpens pattern detection toward threat or miracle. Isolation removes the friction of a friend saying, "Eat a sandwich and go to bed." The stakes creep in unevenly. Reality testing doesn't vanish, it wobbles. You know the red light means stop. You also suspect the red is a signal that your heart is opening. Magical thinking doesn't feel delusional. It feels more true than your careful life ever did. That conviction is intoxicating, and it's the seed of the spin. Microstories pile up. The breakup text becomes a call to save the world through radical compassion. The parking lot epiphany becomes a 72-hour vigil in your studio apartment. Candles burning while you write 10,000 words to strangers on social media about how forgiveness works. The first sunrise after no sleep is rapturous. The second sunrise is a little frightening. The third is a blade. Meanwhile, something else is happening that you don't recognize as dangerous. Your world starts tightening around signs. License plates repeat numbers. Lyrics answer questions you didn't say out loud. A stranger laughs, and you hear contempt. Or you hear confirmation. Either way, you're no longer meeting a world. You're being addressed by it. That shift is the hinge. Get this. What nobody tells you inside the high is that the body always collects payment. The more your attention detaches from the deadbolt of routine, sleep, food, sunlight, conversation, the more fragile your processing becomes. It's like taking the guardrails off a mountain road because the view is better. The view is better. Then the fog rolls in. There's also the social feedback loop. Post the rapture online, and you'll get an algorithmic liturgy. Hearts, fire emojis. Yes, from people who've felt a taste. You'll also get a few quiet DMs that say, "Are you okay?" The likes win. The DMs feel like interference. That's how isolation starts with applause. In certain circles, teachers mean well and say, "Trust the intelligence unfolding." On the right day, that's wise. On day 3 without sleep, it's gasoline. A gentle nun once told a student to let thoughts pass like clouds. He tried. He also stopped eating because meals felt heavy. By day 5, clouds were command posts. So what's the exact moment the peak becomes the break? It's small. It's when your certainty stops softening you and starts hardening you. A friend suggests a nap and you feel insulted. A partner asks about bills and you hear betrayal. You stop testing your revelations against simple reality. You stop letting the kitchen timer decide when tea is ready because time feels optional now. From the outside, you look radiant and a little brittle. From the inside, you feel like you're standing on a narrow ridge with perfect air and a long drop on either side. It's exhilarating. It's also the first step into stage 1 of collapse, overwhelm and disintegration. The high doesn't last. Biology never lets it. Stage 1, overwhelm and disintegration. This is where the music turns into static. The glow is still there in flashes, but the system carrying it starts to fray. You wake to light that feels too bright and a room that feels too near. The dishes glare. The phone hums like it's breathing. You mean to brush your teeth and find yourself staring at the bristles for a full minute, unsure which movement comes first. Panic doesn't announce itself, it seeps. Your body is a dial stuck on too much. Flow note. From here forward, we'll keep the language plain. What's happening in your body, what it feels like, and what helps. So you can actually use this when it's 3 a.m. stakes show up in small humiliations. You forget your PIN at the grocery store. You stand in the shower, trying to remember if you already washed your hair. Inbox piles up with, "Just checking on this." And you feel both guilty and convinced those emails are coded transmissions. Identity, which used to be an ordinary background hum. Your name, your job, your role in the family, blurs like handwriting in the rain. Where do you end? Which part of you answers? Action locks into a loop. Sensory flooding, then desperate meaning-making to tame it. A car backfires and adrenaline slams through your ribs. You check the time, see 11:11, and decide the blast was a message. You scroll until 3 a.m. connecting symbols across news headlines and street signs. A neighbor's dog barks 3 times. You write 3s are gateways in a notebook. Synchronicities multiply because your attention tags them. The tagging feels like safety. It's not. Meanwhile, basic systems falter. Sleep is stringy, 20 minutes here, 40 there. Appetite swings from nothing to sugar raids. Money tasks slide. Autopay fails because you meant to switch cards and never finished. You start dodging calls, then texts, because words feel heavy in your mouth, and you can't explain why you're crying while boiling pasta. Friends ping, you mute threads. Social withdrawal sneaks in wearing the costume of needing quiet. Underneath, there's a mechanism you can feel but not name. The brain's salience network, those circuits that decide what matters, has gone wide open. It's overtagging. Predictive coding, the brain's way of guessing first and updating later, runs hot. You guess that songs on shuffle are tailored to you. Then you hear your own name in a chorus that never said it. This isn't stupidity. It's a stressed system preferring patterns to randomness. The cost is reality testing. You stop checking guesses against boring facts. Here's the trickiest part. The overwhelm masquerades as progress. Teachers online talk about ascension symptoms: tingling, dizziness, insomnia. You read a list and exhale with relief. It's normal. That relief is sticky. It tells you to spiritualize what's essentially nervous system dysregulation. You start treating palpitations as heart opening, the inability to focus as veil thinning, the mounting dread as ego death. Reframing can reduce shame. It can also block help. You pour lavender on a house fire. Microstories sharpen it. A college student lights incense at dawn to hold frequency, then stands frozen at her sink for 2 hours, convinced if she blinks too hard she'll fall out of her body. A chef hears a lyric about home, while chopping onions and bursts into tears, certain it's a signal to quit and move to a monastery. He doesn't show up for his shift and tells himself the universe will handle rent. It doesn't. The body keeps a relentless score. Cortisol stays high, so startle responses jump. Shoulders hitch up, jaw clamps down. You try breath work the way you did on retreat and accidentally spike arousal further. Quick inhales fueling the same fire. Coffee, which used to be routine, now feels like being tasered. You learn that the hard way after a double espresso that turns a bright afternoon into a crawlspace of dread. Relationships absorb the blast. Partners feel like they're losing you to a world they can't see. They ask simple questions you hear as attempts to pull you down. You answer with metaphors and silence. Can you pick up the package? Lands on your nervous system like an attack. You're not hostile, you're flooded. But flooded looks like hostile. Meanwhile, financial and work neglect snowball. You miss a deadline, then two, then stop checking the project portal because each click feels like stepping under cold waterfalls. Your manager offers a meeting. You decline because, I need to protect my energy. The policy doesn't speak that language. You get a warning you interpret as a test from the universe. It's just HR. What nobody knew at the time, what you can only see later, is how the smallest anchors could have slowed the disintegration. 8 hours of dark, 3 real meals, 15 minutes of sunlight on your eyelids before noon. One friend who isn't impressed by your revelations and asks about laundry. Those aren't low vibration traps, they're ballast. Without ballast, the boat spins. And the shame. As function erodes, shame blooms. You start hiding symptoms inside lofty talk. You promise yourself you'll catch up tomorrow, but tomorrow is a maze. You write long notes to yourself at 4 a.m. about purpose, then wake at 10 with a crusted mouth and no plan. You pray, then scroll, then cry, then promise again. The promises are sincere. Biology doesn't care. This is where certainty flips into terror. The same conviction that made coincidences feel holy now turns on you. You begin to suspect the signs are warning you. You replay every moment of the last week looking for what you missed. Hypervigilance wakes up. Every creak is a code. Every siren is about you. You lock the door twice, then thrice, then stop inviting anyone in. As the nervous system fries, the world shrinks to a tunnel, and stage 2 waits in that darkness with its hand out. Stage 2, when wonder turns to threat. This is the turn where light becomes crosshairs. Trust thins first. You start scanning the faces you used to relax around and see angles. A friend's pause on the phone feels loaded. Your partner's sigh is a code. Institutions, HR clinics, even urgent care, look like traps designed to file you under something you'll never escape. Safety isn't out there anymore. It's a narrow lane inside your own head. The stakes climb because this shift rearranges your world map. If friends aren't safe, you stop asking for rides, meals, perspective. If hospitals are predatory, you won't let anyone check the basics. Sleep debt, vitals, hydration meds. A fall now doesn't just bruise, it isolates. And isolation is gasoline on a nervous system that already runs hot. Action tightens around misreading cues. You're at the window and a neighbor looks up. Neutral face, no story. Your chest grabs anyway. Thought-action fusion sneaks in. Thinking about danger feels the same as causing it or preventing it. You ritualize small moves to control big fears. Tap the doorframe 3 times before opening. Rewrite texts until they carry the right frequency. Avoid cracks on the sidewalk, because last time you stepped on one your heart skipped. Conspiracy blends with mysticism. You hear a podcast about data tracking and fold it into a cosmology. Algorithms are harvesters of soul energy. The grocery store scanners are portals. Your phone camera is an eye with intent. Meanwhile, you try to obey contradictory commands. Teachers online say, surrender more. Your body says, barricade. So you do both. Meditate for hours, then duct tape your webcam. Chant mantras, then unplug the router. Fast to purify, then stash canned beans behind the towels. Each action brings a blink of relief. The relief fades. The loop deepens. Conflict shows up at the door. Partners stop speaking in metaphors because rent is due. You hear urgency as aggression. They suggest seeing a clinician. You hear betrayal. You push back with conviction that sounds like clarity. Western medicine doesn't understand what's happening. And they flinch because the eyes they knew aren't landing on them. Family tries gentle limit setting. You block them. A friend who once sat with you for hours texts, I'm worried. And you read, I'm judging. You start pruning your contacts down to whoever echoes your frame. It shrinks you. Impact arrives fast when support is severed. You skip appointments because the timing feels off. Bills stack into red banners you refuse to open. Function drops. Another rung, but now there's no one inside the circle with leverage. Decompensation accelerates. Sleep fragments, appetite blunts, memory slides, and each slip is framed as a sign you're crossing thresholds. The narrative protects dignity. It also hides risk. Underneath the story, your body is doing threat mode. Hypervigilance turns up the danger dial. Stress hormones plus no sleep make the brain tag neutral stuff as hostile. Feeling cornered makes the fear center louder and the planning center quieter. You start searching only for confirming data and avoiding anything that might prove you wrong. Certainty hardens, not because it's true, but because nothing contradictory gets in the room. Here's the spiritual trap that looks wise from inside the fear. A teacher reframes everything as a test. Darkness arises to be cleared, they say. Increase practice. Cut contact with low vibration. On a stable day, containment can help. In acute fear, doubling down amplifies arousal. More fasting, more breath holds, more silence. Each is sold as purification. Each strips another stabilizer. The body needed salt and sleep. It got ideology. Micro-stories anchor the pattern. A man convinced that numbers are maps sees 911 on a microwave and decides the ambulance is for him. He lies on the floor to avoid windows. When his sister calls, he whispers because sound attracts entities. No one comes over because he told them not to. Another woman, blessed by a guru via livestream, stops answering her boss and spends 12 hours tracing energy in her palms. When the wellness check knocks, she hides in the closet and texts a mentor. They're agents. The mentor replies, "Stay in your power," and she takes it as instruction to wait the officers out. They leave. So does her paycheck. What nobody knew at the time is how small, concrete checks could have slowed the spin. A thermometer and a dark room. One meal prepped by someone else. 2 nights of sedated sleep supervised by a clinician who uses plain language and doesn't debate karma. The nervous system needed fewer inputs and stronger anchors. It got cosmic framing. You start blocking care in clever ways. I'll go after the full moon. My body is detoxing hospitals. My intuition says my sleep will correct naturally. Maybe later. Not this week. You unsubscribe from reminders. You switch phones. You set your voicemail to full. Trust evaporates to the point where you test people by feeding them partial truths. If they push back, they're out. If they nod, they're in. The in people encourage practices that make you sicker. The out people stop knocking. That's how the circle tightens to a single seat. In the aftermath of a few near misses, almost setting a burner under a towel, almost walking into traffic because the don't walk hand looked like a blessing, you feel the first chill of collapse. Your rituals aren't containing it. Your explanations feel thin even to you. The panic no longer spikes. It seeps, then pools. Cut off from help, the collapse doesn't just continue. It becomes the climate. Stage 3 waits with the bill. Stage 3, the floor drops. Life stops working. This is where the floor drops. The tunnel you've been walking narrows into a crawl space, then into a pinhole. Function doesn't wobble now. It fails. The rent portal times out because you can't track the 2-step verification. You open the fridge and stare. The word eat is there. The sequence isn't. You catch yourself standing in the doorway between rooms, unsure why you moved. Stakes are concrete and immediate. Job loss isn't a threat. It's an email with a subject line that starts "We regret." Financial freefall follows simple math. Missed shifts, late fees, accounts on hold, a parent's credit card stretched to its last inch. Hospitalization shifts from a story other people warn you about to a paramedic's boots in your hallway because a neighbor heard banging and silence. Legal scares arrive in plain envelopes. Welfare checks documented. An eviction notice taped at eye level. The body, pushed past alarms, flips between frenzy and freeze. Psychomotor agitation looks like pacing until your calves burn, tearing open a drawer and then another, hands shaking with a mission you can't name. Freeze looks like lying on the floor for hours, eyes open, breath shallow. The ceiling fan assigning you tests you keep failing. Your mind splits its own screen. Part of you narrates in grand terms, part of you slides out of the room. Dissociation washes in and out. Depersonalization and derealization make your hands look like props and your street like a set. You want to come back. You don't know where back is. Risk goes up because judgment goes down. You walk 3 miles at 2 a.m. in socks because the sidewalk feels magnetic. You DM a stranger your address because they posted an angel number. You light candles on the floor and forget the curtain is flirting with flame. Someone pounds on the door. You don't move because your rules say don't open to hostile frequencies. The room smells sweet and dangerous. Impact lands in waves. After 4 nights of shattered sleep, your thoughts begin to bite. They don't announce themselves as suicidal. They present as relief math. Remove yourself, remove the storm. Shame floods in behind them. What kind of spiritual person thinks like this? And the shame itself becomes fuel. You start bargaining with fate. If the clock hits 3:33, I stay. It doesn't. You cry so hard your face aches. You consider pills, a bridge, a bathtub. Then the sun pushes a stripe of light onto the wall, and you remember you haven't had water. While that's happening, the medical system can misroute you. You hit urgent care in sunglasses and talk about energy. A rushed clinician hears voices and checks the psychosis box, missing the sleep collapse and stimulant load. Another listens kindly and calls it grief, missing the risk. In the ER, a resident asks if you use meth. You shake your head. He orders labs, offers an antipsychotic, and no one speaks the word sleep like it's a procedure. You leave with a printout that says follow up with primary in 5 to 7 days. Time at this altitude stretches like plastic wrap. Underneath the chaos, the mechanism is simple and brutal. Stress overload. Your system has been paying stress debt with interest. Cortisol keeps the alarm on. Adrenaline keeps the legs moving. The planning part of your brain, starved of rest and steady blood sugar, loses grip on sequence and self-control. The boring muscles that hold life together, planning, remembering, shifting tasks, go offline. If you wrote it down, it exists. If you didn't, it disappears. This is the hinge the story balances on. Either a stabilizing anchor arrives, or damage compounds. Anchors aren't revelations, they're interventions. A sister who shows up with calm eyes and no metaphysics, who says, "We're turning off candles now," and stands there while you do it. A clinician who speaks to your dignity and your risk in the same sentence. I believe you had a profound experience, and tonight we're going to get you 8 hours of sleep safely. A short course of medication used on purpose, not as punishment. Something to sedate, something to take the edge off threat detection. A plan to reassess in daylight. A sleep plan treated like surgery. Dark room, device off. Someone staying in the next room. Food that has salt. Micro stories show the pivot. A barista in freefall is fired at noon, wanders until dusk, and texts a meditation teacher who replies with a prayer hands emoji. He pockets his phone, heads for the overpass. A co-worker who noticed he'd stopped joking, drives his usual route home, spots him leaning, pulls over, and says, "Hey man, come sit with me. Let's breathe and call my aunt, she's a nurse." That detour buys a night of sedated sleep, a safety plan, and a place on a couch. The overpass waits for other people. Not him, not that night. Most people don't get that anchor, because systems fail in predictable ways. Spiritual communities romanticize the breakdown, call it purification, tell you to double practice while your sodium is low and your sleep is wrecked. Clinical systems, pressed for time, strip the meaning and miss the person, or they send you home with a pamphlet and a phone number you won't call. Family, exhausted and scared, switches to argument, which your nervous system hears as proof you're alone. The collapse doesn't mean there's no way back. It means the way back starts with physiology. Salt, water, darkness, quiet, a hand on the doorknob saying, "We're getting help now," and not letting go. Then, when the alarm quiets, the larger frame can return without swallowing you. But right here, at the bottom, the story waits for the hard question. Who will be the anchor? And will you accept them? The betrayal, when spiritual communities miss the crisis. While he's spiraling, the first place many turn isn't a clinic. It's the Sangha, the church basement, the yoga group chat. They arrive trembling and sleep-starved, speaking in metaphors, and are met with nods, incense, and reassurance that this is purification. That word soothes shame and quietly magnifies risk. When collapse looks like progress, nobody reaches for salt, sleep, and supervision. They reach for more practice. Romanticization is the first trap. Teachers tell stories of saints who wandered deserts and burned karma through nights without food or rest. That mythology sells breakdown as a rite. A woman shows up shaking, says the ceiling hums with messages, and someone smiles. The serpent is rising. She goes home convinced the terror is sacred. She also leaves without a sleep plan. Then comes the competence gap. Many leaders are sincere, wise in meaning, and untrained in physiology. They don't screen for mania vulnerability or trauma activation. They don't check blood pressure, ask about caffeine, or know when to say, "We need a doctor tonight." A retreat assistant notices a participant hasn't slept in 3 days and offers longer sits. Not lorazepam consults or a dark room with watchful company. Not because they're cruel, because no one taught them what acute means in a nervous system. Harmful advice lands wearing spiritual language. More fasting, more silence. Cut contact with low-vibration family. Unplug news, but also reject clinicians as third-dimensional. The logic is airtight inside the frame. Protect the awakening from interference. In practice, it strips stabilizers. Food becomes impurity instead of glucose. Connection becomes contamination instead of regulation. A man already scanning for threat is told to isolate to keep his field clean. His field gets louder. Accountability slides through fingers. If a student deteriorates, the system reframes harm as resistance. She's purging lifetimes. His ego is fighting. That move keeps the teacher right and the student alone. It also erases red flags. Pressured speech is Shakti flow. Grandiosity is remembering your mission. Misperceptions are piercing the veil. Once everything is an initiation, nothing is a contraindication. Missed red flags are everywhere in this crucible. Mania, decreased need for sleep, impulsive spending, expansive plans, recast as quantum alignment. Psychosis, ideas of reference, voices braided with meaning, recast as guides arriving. Trauma reactivation, flashbacks, hyperarousal, recast as Kundalini clearing blocks. The names aren't the point, the interventions are. A name that blocks sleep, nutrition, and medication when indicated is a bad name, whatever tradition it comes from. Micro-stories make the failure plain. A meditator on day 8 of retreat reports that her hands are buzzing and the walls breathe. The facilitator, kind and undertrained, invites her to sit through it. She hasn't eaten since breakfast. She hasn't slept. By midnight, she's pacing in the parking lot, whispering to a lamppost. No one calls her emergency contact. They fear medicalizing. At dawn, she's in a taxi, alone, convinced the driver is an angel who will take her beyond the grid. He drops her at her apartment. She doesn't remember the code. Another, a charismatic mentor, tells a young man to hold the frequency by stopping all media, family, and dense employment. He quits his job, blocks his sister, and spends 10 days tracking numbers on clocks. When panic rises, the mentor texts, "It's a test." He passes nothing. His landlord posts a notice. The mentor posts a quote card about surrender. What nobody in these rooms names clearly is risk. Not cosmic risk. Concrete risk. Sleep loss past 48 hours changes cognition. Stimulants, including green tea and cacao, can drive arousal higher. Breath work with long retentions, done in collapse, spikes CO2 swings and threat detection. Open more is gasoline when the system is already flooded. There's also a structural reason communities miss it. Incentives. Admitting harm fractures the brand. Saying, "We need psychiatric support," sounds like betrayal of the path. Leaders fear losing authority to people in scrubs. So they keep it in-house, even when in-house is a bookshelf and a YouTube playlist. We can honor the depth and still tell the truth. Crises need protocols. Communities can carry meaning. They cannot replace risk screens, sleep restoration, or safety plans. A competent path sets boundaries in acute phases. No metaphysical debates, no fasting, no marathon sits. It builds bridges to clinicians who won't mock the experience. It trains volunteers to ask 3 questions. When did you last sleep 8 hours? When did you last eat a full meal with salt? Who is with you tonight? Fast fact for leaders. Since 1994, DSM-4 added religious or spiritual problem, version 62.89, to name crises without stamping them as pathology, and DSM-5. 2013 retained it. Translation: you can validate meaning and still act on risk. Both are standard of care. The fix isn't to abandon spiritual spaces. It's to de-romanticize breakdown and upgrade response. One calm person who says, "Your insight matters. Your body is on fire. Let's cool it now," can change the arc. Communities that can hold paradox, reverence, and triage become real refuges. Those that count will keep losing people to storms they celebrated. Why therapy often misses it, and how to land it. By the time they reach a clinic, they're frayed, sleep poor, and speaking a language most providers never learned. The first miss is diagnostic. A rushed intake hears messages in music, and the world feels like it's talking to me. And the form tilts towards psychosis, full stop. The box gets checked. The chart takes a path that strips the experience of meaning. The person feels flattened into a code. The alliance cracks on day one. Overpathologizing has a simple shape. A clinician, trained to protect, narrows everything to symptoms. Grandiosity, ideas of reference, decreased need for sleep. Tick, tick, tick. The framing saves time and protects against risk, but it deletes the sacredness that glued the person together during terror. You can watch their eyes go dull. They nod, then ghost the next appointment. Not because they're non-compliant, but because their one bright thread got cut. Underpathologizing is the mirror mistake. Afraid to shame or invalidate, a therapist leans hard into affirmation. I believe you're awakening, they say, and skip risk screens. They don't ask about lethal means, stimulant use, days since a full night's sleep, or the plan if voices turn hostile. They collude with a narrative that leaves arousal unchecked. The client feels seen and slides further into danger. System design amplifies both errors. 15 to 50-minute sessions once a week can't hold an acute spiral. There's rarely a protocol for client hasn't slept in 72 hours. Many clinics don't have standing consult pathways to urgent sleep interventions. Basic physiology, light exposure, meal timing, caffeine load, doesn't show up in treatment plans. Meanwhile, charting demands swallow the hour. The therapist cares, the calendar doesn't. Cultural literacy is another gap. Words like Kundalini, dark night, vipassana, ayahuasca afterglow, jhana, or non-dual insight sound fringe if you've never met them. Without that map, clinicians misread metaphors as delusions or miss how practices interact with arousal. A client says, I was doing breath of fire for 20 minutes every hour, and the therapist hears breathing exercise, not sympathetic accelerator. A client says, I'm fasting to keep it clean, and the therapist hears diet choice, not glycemic volatility fueling panic. Microstories show the miss. A graduate student shows up to campus counseling, hands shaking, saying, I think something opened. The clinician, kind and pressed, runs a PHQ, 9 and GAD-7, scores high, and schedules CBT for catastrophizing. No one asks when she last slept or ate. She leaves with thought records. That night she stares at her ceiling until dawn, convinced a shadow in the corner holds assignments from God. She no-shows the follow-up. Another, a private practice therapist, eager to be open-minded, leans into the client's cosmology. Tell me more about the guides. Sessions become story time about synchronicities. No behavioral experiments, no sleep log, no red lines. The client feels validated and stops answering family. 3 weeks later, he's evicted. The therapist is shocked. We were making progress. They were making meaning. They weren't managing risk. Training rarely covers middle language. Clinicians learn to challenge distortions or reflect feelings. Few learn to say, I respect the insight, and we won't debate metaphysics while you're sleep deprived. Few learn to translate. When you say the veil is thin, I hear my senses feel raw and my boundaries feel porous. Let's cool your system so you can evaluate the content later. That stance keeps dignity intact while moving the plan towards stabilization. Quick stat to anchor this. In one research program, 59 meditation-related difficulties were documented across domains like sleep, perception, and mood. So screening for practice history and sleep isn't niche, it's necessary. There's also fear on both sides. Clinicians fear missing psychosis and getting blamed. Clients fear coercion and losing control. The result is a tug-of-war where nobody names the shared goal. Protect life and function, now so meaning can be integrated later. When the therapist leads with, I won't take your experience away, I will help you sleep and stay safe, the room softens. When they add, we'll bring in a prescriber if needed, and you'll be part of that decision, control returns to the client's hands. What would have helped in those rooms? A simple, dual-track checklist. 1 column, risk and physiology sleep. Hours, lethal means, substances, stimulants, medical rule-outs, safety contacts, crisis plan, short-term meds when indicated. The other column, meaning and values. What felt true, what matters now, who can hold the story without escalating. Add boundaries. No metaphysical debates in acute phases. No big life moves for 90 days. No fasting. No high-intensity practices. Document it. Rehearse it. The evidence is there in pieces. Sleep restoration reduces mania risk. Routine and social support reduce relapse. Psychoeducation builds insight. Trauma-informed care lowers arousal. What's missing isn't science. It's translation and timing. Therapy misses when it chooses one column. It lands when it holds both, body first, meaning preserved. And when that stance clicks, people come back. They stop ghosting. They sleep. They speak. They choose anchors. They rebuild. The middle path, keep the meaning, fix the state. Here's the pivot that keeps people alive and keeps the experience intact. Treat the crisis on 2 tracks at once. One track is physiology, sleep, arousal, routine, safety. The other is meaning, honoring the insight, preserving dignity, and deciding what it asks of your life later. You don't have to choose between "it was sacred" and "I need help." You hold both in order. Principle 1. Stabilize the body while you protect the story. If the nervous system is a burning house, you put out the fire first. You don't argue about interior design while the kitchen smokes. That means sleep is the first non-negotiable, with any tools you can tolerate. Dark hours, wind-down rituals, temporary meds if needed, and a full stop on stimulants. Reducing arousal comes next. Slow breath pacing, gentle movement, warm showers, sunlight in the morning, fewer inputs. Routine follows. Wake, eat, move, rest, repeat. Dignity threads through every step. No mockery, no eye-rolling, no it's all in your head. Principle 2. Roles are clear. The clinician leads risk and safety, sleep restoration, substance and stimulant assessment, meds when indicated, crisis planning, medical rule-outs, coordination with supports. The mentor or spiritually literate ally holds integration and values. What felt true, how to translate it into daily behavior later, which communities are safe. They don't swap jobs. A mentor doesn't advise on medication. A clinician doesn't debate metaphysics in acute phases. That boundary keeps trust intact. Boundaries are the guardrails that make the road drivable. In acute arousal, no metaphysical debates. Not because the content is false, but because the state makes evaluation unreliable. No big life decisions for 90 days. No quitting jobs, ending marriages, selling houses, or taking vows. No fasting. No high-intensity breathwork or marathon sits. No all-night prayer. No psychedelics. These lines aren't punishment, they're scaffolding. They protect future you, the one who will decide what the peak means when your feet are on the ground. The North Star is function returning while the narrative stays whole. We want you paying bills, feeding yourself, sleeping through the night, and keeping one friend close, without losing the thread of what moved you. The insight doesn't vanish when the threat system quiets. It gets clearer. When arousal drops, you can test what remains. Compassion that holds after breakfast, values that survive calendars, a sense of connection that doesn't require burning your life down. What does this look like in the room? The clinician says, "I believe something meaningful happened. Right now your system is overclocked. Tonight our job is 8 hours of sleep. We'll use a short-term med and a dark setup. Tomorrow we'll check in and adjust." The mentor says, "Write one line that captures the heart of it. Put it on a card. Don't negotiate with it yet. For now, drink broth, walk in the sun, and call me after you nap." The client exhales because both parts are seen. The person who touched something vast, and the person who needs to brush their teeth and eat. Meanwhile, something else is happening that changes outcomes. Accountability with compassion. A buddy system for appointments. A shared sleep log. A device curfew agreed to out loud. One family member trained to ask 3 questions nightly. Did you eat salt with dinner? How many hours of dark did you get? Who's on your calendar tomorrow? Those are not spiritual intrusions, they're parachutes. There will be friction. You'll want to talk about signs when the plan says bath, rice, and bed. You'll want to prove you're chosen when the plan says call HR and ask for sick leave. The dual-track frame meets that tug with respect. We'll integrate meaning, it says. First we lower the temperature. You learn that calm isn't betrayal of the peak. It's the only way to carry it forward without breaking. Hold both tracks long enough, and the system stops screaming. Sleep returns. Threat detection dials down. The story stops being a fire and becomes a lamp. That's the moment. To move carefully into step-by-step recovery. Recovery protocol step 1. Stabilize the body. This step isn't glamorous. It's the part where we pick up the bricks that hold a day together and set them back in place, one by one. We start with sleep, because nothing else sticks without it. Treat sleep like a medical procedure. Darken the room, blackout curtains, tape over LEDs, phone in another space. Set a wind down that's boring and repeatable. Warm shower, light stretch, low light, 1 page of the same book every night. Aim for lights out at the same time, even if sleep doesn't come. Hold the hours of darkness as sacred. In acute phases, a short course of sleep medication can be the bridge, used deliberately, with a plan to review after 4 to 7 nights. This isn't weakness, it's scaffolding. Reminder to keep it simple, physiology first. Insight will wait. Stop stimulants completely for now. Not just coffee. No black or green tea, energy drinks, cacao tonics, pre-workout powders, or nicotine if you can manage a taper. Many people discover the match they're striking every morning is the same match they're trying to extinguish at midnight. Replace the ritual, not just the drink. Decaf herbal, warm broth, or lemon water in the same mug, so your hands remember comfort. Downshift the nervous system in small cycles throughout the day. Think long exhales, slow body. Try a pacing breath. In for 4, out for 6 to 8, 5 minutes at a time, 3 to 5 times daily. If holding counts spikes anxiety, switch to soft sighs. Let the exhale fall out like you're fogging a window. Contrast helps. Warm shower followed by 30 seconds of cool water to the calves and forearms, then towel and a blanket. Gentle movement only, slow walks, light stretching, rocking in a chair. Save the ice baths and intense breath work for another season. Right now, high-intensity hacks are accelerants. Feed the system on a schedule, not on inspiration. 3 real meals, minimum, with protein and salt at each. Don't chase purity, chase stability. Eggs, rice, soup with broth, toast with nut butter, yogurt with fruit, rotisserie chicken, steamed vegetables with olive oil. Simple, warm, and repeatable. If appetite is thin, graze on small bowls every 2 to 3 hours to smooth blood sugar. Add electrolytes to water or a pinch of salt and a squeeze of citrus. Hydration isn't just volume, it's minerals. Control the room where your senses live. Reduce stimuli without sealing yourself in a cave. Dim overhead lights, use lamps. Keep one clear surface and one soft place to sit. Turn off push notifications. Set a device curfew. 1 hour before bed screens off. Put the phone to charge in the kitchen. If you need noise, choose neutral, rain, brown noise, or a familiar playlist without lyrical puzzles. Your attention is tender, don't feed it riddles. Go outside early. Morning light anchors circadian rhythm better than any app. 10 to 20 minutes of daylight on your eyes before noon sets tonight's melatonin. Don't stare at the sun, just be out where the sky is bright. If you can, walk while you do it. Your vestibular system likes gentle motion. It tells your brain the world is steady. Measure only what helps. Keep a simple log, bedtime, estimated hours slept, wake time, meals you actually ate. 1 sentence on arousal from to 10, steps or minutes walked. The point isn't perfection, it's seeing patterns. If arousal spikes when lunch is late, you just learned a lever. If sleep improves after a warm shower and feet on the wall for 5 minutes, keep it. If scrolling after 9 p.m. pushes bedtime by an hour, gate it. Create a buddy system around these basics. One person, calm, practical, not impressed by mysticism, checks in morning and night for a week. They ask 3 questions. How many hours of dark did you get? What's your first meal? What's your plan for moving your body today? They don't debate. They witness and nudge. If you live alone, ask them to sit on a call during your wind down the first nights you reintroduce medication or new routines. Safety isn't just absence of danger, it's presence of steady people. Micro-stories show how this lands. A man who hadn't slept more than 2 hours in days agreed to sleep surgery. At 7 p.m., his friend arrived with soup and stayed while he ate. At 8, phone plugged in the kitchen. At 8:30, warm shower, soft socks. At 9, he took the prescribed dose. At 9:15, the friend dimmed lights and read a page of the same novel they loved in high school. At 9:30 dark, he slept 7 hours. The content of his visions didn't vanish, the terror around them did. He could talk the next day. Talking made room for choices. Expect resistance dressed as meaning. You'll think, if I sleep, I'll lose the thread. The thread doesn't live in panic. It survives ordinary care. You'll think salt is dense. That broth dulls your light. The light you can only see at 3 a.m. isn't wisdom. It's a stress artifact. Eat, sleep, walk, breathe, out, then test what remains. This step asks for humility and discipline. Not forever, long enough to give your brain back its margins. When the body steadies, the floor stops tilting. That's when we can start rebuilding reality testing without fighting waves every hour. Recovery Protocol Step 2, Rebuild Reality Testing. With the body steadier, we start giving your mind a floor to stand on. Think of this step as laying planks across water. They aren't grand, they hold. Bridge to this step. You don't argue your way out of altered states. You practice your way back to coordinates. Begin with orientation drills. 3 times a day, pause and name out loud. Today's date, time, exact location, weather, and one mundane detail in the room. Touch a solid object and describe it with 5 senses. The mug is warm, ceramic, chipped at the rim, smells like cinnamon, weighs about a pound. Then add a time, place, person check. What were you doing 1 hour ago? What are you doing in 1 hour? Who could you call right now? These are anchors. They pull attention from cosmology back into coordinates. 5 senses anchoring pairs with external before internal. When intensity rises, look left, find 3 rectangles. Look right, find 3 circles. Count your exhales to 5 while your feet press the floor. Then ask, what's one task in the next 10 minutes that proves I'm here? Move a glass to the sink. Text your buddy, I'm up. Open a window. Reality testing isn't a debate, it's contact. Cognition comes back through experiments, not arguments. Use probability ladders to tame certainty. If you think the song on the radio is a direct message, rate confidence from 0 to 100. Write 3 ordinary explanations for why it fits your question. Drop your rating by 10 points and note what changes. Then run a behavioral test. Set a specific prediction. If I'm chosen, the next car I see will be red. And step outside. If it isn't, drop another 10. This isn't to humiliate the experience. It's to reintroduce doubt as a skill. Build media hygiene like a fence. For 30 days, no algorithmic rabbit holes after 6 p.m. No conspiracy content. No sacred texts as insomnia fuel. Choose one news source and check it at a scheduled time. Keep a possible meaning. Notebook you don't open after dinner. If a symbol hits hard at night, jot 1 line on a sticky note and put it under your phone. You'll review in daylight with someone else. Nighttime is for settling, not interpreting. Social calibration is the scaffold that keeps ideas from floating away. Choose one trusted person, calm, blunt, kind, as your reality buddy. Give them permission to ask you the 3 checks. Sleep hours, meals, and what's a mundane explanation? Agree on limited disclosure rules. You can share 3 big impressions per week, the rest wait 48 hours. Accountability isn't control, it's a promise to future you. Add a second layer, an appointment buddy. They sit on a call while you book medical or financial tasks. They ride along for the first visit back to work or the bank. You draft a 1-paragraph status update you can read to managers or professors. I had a health crisis. I'm stabilizing care. I can do X by Y date. I'll update on Z. No metaphysics, no excuses, no shame, just facts and a plan. Scaffold work and finance with microtasks. Break everything into 10-minute slices. Open the bill, write down the amount, set an auto-pay date, text your buddy scheduled. Use visual timers. If a screen feels hostile, dictate into your notes app and copy later. Put recurring bills on auto as soon as you can, even small ones. Every automated click is one less bridge for a flooded brain to build daily. Set red lines that protect the rebuild. For 90 days, no big life decisions. No quitting jobs, divorces, vows, cross-country moves, or new loans. Defer metaphysical claims in public spaces. If you feel compelled to post revelations, put them in your possible meaning notebook with a date. Review monthly with your mentor when sleep and meals are consistent. If a claim still stands in daylight after routine, it earns discussion. If not, it dissolves without shame. Grounding gets teeth when it's paired with small wins. Stack 3 daily proofs of reality. A completed chore, a human exchange, and a body cue. Wipe a counter. Say thank you to a cashier, notice their eye color. Feel your feet in shoes and name their temperature. Log the wins. They accumulate into confidence that isn't mystical and isn't fragile. Micro-stories show the arc. A woman convinced streetlights blinked for her started the 3-3-3 drill. 3 anchors, 3 tasks, 3 checks with her buddy. She wrote her first probability ladder on a sticky note and hated it. 2 weeks later, she watched a lyric land, smiled, and wrote, maybe. Review Friday. A delivery driver who saw numbers everywhere limited disclosure to 1 big share per week. He told his manager, health setback, back by Wednesday with task list. Wednesday came. He delivered 3 routes. The numbers kept showing up. They stopped steering the wheel. Rebuild isn't a referendum on what you touched. It's learning to carry it without dropping your life. With the floor back under you, meaning can be integrated. Safely. Recovery Protocol Step 3. Integrate the meaning. Now that your feet hold on ground, we turn toward the part that scared you most to lose. The meaning. We don't erase it. We right-size it. Start with narrative work. Write the story the way it felt in your body, not the way you posted it. 1 page, present tense, simple language. At 2 a.m., sprinklers hissed and I felt threaded to everything. Then write a 2nd page. What the experience might be asking of you in verbs, not identities: care, repair, honesty, service, sobriety, art. Keep nouns small, keep actions measurable. Stat that eases fear. DSM-4 added religious or spiritual problem. Version 62.89. In 1994, and DSM-5 kept it. Your meaning can be honored while your safety is protected. Don't literalize the altitude. Translate it. If you believed you were chosen to end capitalism with love, distill the live wire beneath it. Fairness, dignity, generosity. Then ask, what does that look like on a Tuesday? Maybe it's paying an overdue invoice you avoided, tipping well, mentoring someone at work, or choosing one local mutual aid shift a month. Grand visions collapse without small handles. Handles keep vision moving. Values mapping turns revelation into habits. Write 5 values that survived breakfast. Kindness, truth, steadiness, usefulness, curiosity. For each, list 2 behaviors that can happen weekly. Kindness. Call 1 lonely person. Carry snacks for your future self. Truth. Tell your manager the next honest update. Admit when you don't know. Steadiness. Lights out at the same time. Groceries on Sunday. Usefulness. 1 hour of service you can keep doing when the glow is gone. Curiosity. Read 1 thoughtful page instead of 10 threads. Put them on a card. Check boxes, not vibes. Grief needs a seat at the table. You're not just stabilizing. You're losing illusions that felt like air. Mourn the friendships that don't fit the new edges. Mourn the self who thought intensity equals depth. Mourn the attention that came with posting at 3 a.m. Write letters you won't send. To the mentor who missed you, the community that blessed danger, the version of you who almost stepped off the bridge. Read them aloud to 1 safe person, or place them under a stone by water. Ritual closes loops your cortex count. Now, choose community with psychological safety, not mystique. Criteria are boring on purpose. They ask about sleep, food, and consent in the first 10 minutes. Leaders name limits and referrals. The group can say, I don't know. There's room to disagree without exile. They don't isolate you from family, regulate your time with demands, or reframe pushback as sin. When in doubt, visit 3 times before committing, and bring your checklist. Do they normalize rest? Do they welcome clinical collaboration? Do they discourage fasting in vulnerable people? If the answers wobble, keep walking. Mentor selection follows the same math. Look for someone who can say, I don't do medication advice, and I'll help you put this into practice after sleep returns. Ask them how they screen for risk. If they talk only about energy and never about arousal, blood sugar, or boundaries, they can bless your poetry, but not your safety. Relapse prevention makes meaning sturdy. Write your early warning signs. Scrolling past midnight, skipping meals, number chasing, 3 days of special coincidences, tightening circles, contempt for ordinary friends, the itch to post revelations. Pair each sign with a specific interrupt. Text the buddy, read. Take magnesium with salty food, 30 minutes of daylight, read the values card, media curfew at 6 p.m, call clinician for sleep plan. Put your crisis plan in 2 places, taped inside a cabinet and shared with 2 people who will actually act. Include medications that helped, doses, what to avoid, and who to call at 2 a.m. Expect ambivalence. Part of you will want the high back. Don't argue with that part, give it a lane. Schedule a weekly sacred hour in daylight. Sit, breathe slowly, write questions to the mystery, draw, sing. Then close the book, wash a dish, and make lunch. Reverence belongs in the day, too. Let it prove it can live there. Micro-stories show the integration. A woman distilled, I'm here to heal the world, into I repair what's in reach. She started with the broken hinge on her mother's cupboard, then wrote a check to the friend she owed. She kept a Thursday soup night with neighbors. The brightness didn't vanish, it decanted. A man who felt commanded by numbers turned them into service. He logged deliveries on time, used the digits as breathing counts, and sent anonymous grocery cards to 2 families a month. The compulsion softened, the care remained. Finally, test the meaning in the smallest durable unit, your day. Wake, eat, move, work a little, help someone, laugh once, rest, sleep. If a sentence from the peak still hums after that, it's probably true enough to keep. If it only sings when you're starving and wired, it was thunder talking. Let it pass. Keep the rain. Case study, from peak to protocol. He called it the best 10 minutes of his life. Day 7 of a high-dose silent retreat. Midnight sit, breath slow as tide. Then a rush, heat up the spine, tears without sadness, a clarity so clean he wanted to bow to the floor. On the walk back, sprinklers hissed, and he felt named. He slept 2 hours, woke electric, and wrote, "I'm home." By day 10, the light was still on, and his sleep was gone. If you've been here, you know this next line. In the first 72 hours, wonder and danger can wear the same coat. What happens next decides the arc home didn't travel well. Back in his studio, the peak turned into a plan. He posted about forgiveness and got 100 hearts before noon. He skipped lunch. That night, streetlights blinked and he heard yes. He slept 90 minutes, then none. By day 3, neighbors' footsteps sounded like drum codes. He DM'd his boss at 4 a.m. "I need to realign with purpose." He meant to explain more and never did. Complications arrived like stacked tabs. Family offered dinner. He declined to protect the field. He live-streamed a monologue about love economies and dropped his rent in the same hour. A friend texted, "Are you okay?" He answered with an infinity emoji and muted the thread. He kept fasting because food felt heavy. On day 10, he went 29 hours without sleep, stood barefoot on the balcony in January, and prayed into the traffic. A neighbor called non-emergency when he started laughing at the sky. The wellness check spooked him. He hid, shaking, while the knock softened and faded. After they left, his thoughts sharpened into threat math. "If I am chosen, they will try to stop me." He stuffed candles in a drawer and left one lit. Wax-kissed fabric. By luck, it guttered. He didn't notice. He wrote for 2 hours about mercy, then forgot to drink water. The turning point was small and human. His sister, who he'd sidelined as dense, showed up with soup and a calm voice. "I'm not here to argue," she said. "We're going to sleep tonight." He started to protest, mission, guides, timing, and she nodded like she'd already agreed with him. "Tomorrow we'll talk about it." Tonight, 8 hours. She texted a clinician she trusted who had offered help without mocking metaphysics. The intervention was simple and stacked. Sleep first plan. Black out the room with painter's tape and towels, tape over LEDs, phone charging in the kitchen. Tech boundaries. Device curfew at 8, sister holding the phone. Buddy system. She sat in the next room, knitting, while he took the short-term med the clinician recommended, with a check-in call scheduled for morning. The clinician's words were deliberate. "Your experience matters. Your system is overclocked. We'll review meds in 4 days." He slept 6.5 hours that night, then 7.25, then 8. The first full night snapped something back into place. He woke hungry and embarrassed. She put salt in his broth and didn't comment on the candles. They wrote a microplan on an index card. Eat at 9, noon 6. Sunlight walk by 10. Call HR for leave. No posts for a week. No high-intensity breath work. No fasting. Values card in pocket. Reality check ritual came next. At breakfast, he ran the 333. 3 anchors, date, place, weather. 3 senses, mug warm, broth salty, chair sturdy. 3 tasks, dishes, email HR, short walk. He hated the smallness and did it anyway. With his mentor, someone who knew the terrain and kept boundaries, they distilled the peak into a line. I felt threaded to life. They wrote 2 behaviors that didn't require insomnia. Call mom on Sundays, tip well. There were setbacks. On day 5, a lyric landed and his chest flared. He reached for Twitter. His sister slid the notebook across the table. "Write it. Review Friday." He scowled, wrote, walked in the sun, and the heat cooled. On day 7, numbers on a receipt lined up. He smiled, breathed out for 8 counts, and filed it under possible meaning. He slept that night without medication. By week 3, function led and meaning followed. HR granted medical leave after he read a 2-paragraph status his appointment buddy helped him draft. Rent was paid, with late fees, yes, but paid. He kept a half-hour service slot on Thursdays washing produce at a pantry. He moved for 20 minutes daily. He ate protein and salt. He kept 1 sacred hour in daylight, not at 3 a.m., to sit, breathe slowly, and write a question to the mystery. Outcome wasn't cinematic. It was intact. He returned to part-time work at 6 weeks. At 8, he met with his mentor to review the notebook. Many thunderlines faded in daylight. One remained: repair what's in reach. He mapped it onto Tuesdays: text a lonely friend, fix the broken drawer, send the overdue payment. He wrote a relapse plan: early signs, interrupts, the clinician's number, med names and doses that helped, and stuck it inside his cupboard. He didn't lose the thread. He stopped letting it pull him under. Evidence and ethics: what we can say for sure. Here's the ground we can actually stand on. Clinicians use a few overlapping maps. Spiritual emergency describes a crisis with religious or transpersonal content that overwhelms coping. Psychosis spectrum describes disturbances in perception, belief, and organization that impair function. They aren't mutually exclusive. The same person can be inside a spiritually meaningful event and, at the same time, meet criteria for mania with psychotic features. The label matters only if it improves safety and preserves dignity. Timeline check for accuracy. DSM-4, 1994. Introduced religious or spiritual problem, version 62.89. DSM-5, 2013, retained it. This isn't fringe, it's in the manual. Evidence anchors start with sleep. Sleep loss is a reliable accelerator for mania and psychosis risk. Past 48 to 72 hours without consolidated sleep, cognition degrades, threat perception rises, reality testing wobbles. Restoring 8 to 9 dark hours, by any ethical means necessary, behavioral routines first, short-term medications when indicated, reduces risk and shortens episodes. This isn't a vibe, it's physiology. Arousal is the second anchor. Hypervigilance and cortisol loops amplify salience tagging, making coincidences feel engineered. Downshifting the nervous system. Slow exhale-focused breathing, gentle movement, morning light, warm to cool contrast, reduced inputs. Reliably decreases symptoms for many. High-intensity practices, stimulants, and fasting do the opposite. That pattern shows up across case series and clinical observation. Simplify state, lower symptoms. Depersonalization/derealization, DPDR, has its own playbook. Grounding through 5 senses drills, orientation to time/place/person, steady routines, and trauma-informed pacing improves distress and function. Treat DPDR like a state to move through, not a verdict. The brain recalibrates faster when it has predictable cues and enough fuel. Social support beats isolation. Routine contact with one steady person, structured check-ins, and practical help outperforms solo heroics. Psychoeducation, teaching what salience, sleep, and arousal do, improves insight and adherence. When clinicians respect meaning, clients engage more. When communities respect physiology, crises resolve faster. Medication has a role when risk is high. Short-term sedative hypnotics to reset sleep. Cautious use of antipsychotics or mood stabilizers when agitation, delusions, or mania threaten safety. PRNs for acute spikes. Used deliberately, with a plan to review and taper, meds can be bridges, not identities. The goal is function and safety, not erasing the experience. What helps is boring by design. Sleep restoration, routine, morning light, food with salt and protein, reduced stimulants, safe company, clear limits on practices that spike arousal, skilled therapy that holds both risk and meaning. What harms is also consistent. Sleep deprivation, isolation, stimulants and psychedelics during destabilization, prolonged fasting, breath work with long retentions, grandiosity reinforcement, cutting off family and clinicians under the banner of purity. Ethics run through all of it. Informed consent means naming options, benefits, and risks in plain language. Safety planning isn't optional when sleep is shattered or suicidal thinking appears. Lethal means counseling, crisis contacts, who can show up tonight. Scope of practice matters. Spiritual mentors don't advise on meds or override medical care. Clinicians don't mock beliefs or debate metaphysics in acute phases. Collaboration is the gold standard. A clinician leads risk. A spiritually literate ally supports integration. The client retains agency within clear boundaries. Cultural competence is an ethical duty. If a client says Kundalini, jhana, or ayahuasca afterglow, the clinician doesn't have to be an expert, but they do have to be curious. Ask what the term means to the client, how they practiced, and how state shifts interact with sleep, food, and stress. Translate practices into physiological effects. When you say breath of fire, I hear fast breathing that can spike arousal. Let's pause that while we stabilize. Documentation should reflect both tracks. Client reports a profound spiritual experience. Presents with insomnia, increased arousal, ideas of reference. Plan, sleep first protocol, safety plan, meds consult, defer metaphysical debates, schedule integration after stabilization. That chart protects care and preserves narrative. Finally, humility. Research on spiritual emergency remains thin compared to psychosis literature. Prevalence is unclear. Mechanisms overlap. So we act on what's sturdy. Protect life, restore sleep, reduce arousal, rebuild routine, hold meaning with respect, and keep roles clean. If an intervention lowers risk and preserves dignity, it earns a place. If a story blocks care, we pause the story, not the person who carries it. The 72-hour crisis. Checklist. If you're in the storm right now, the next 3 days are about one thing: lowering risk fast so your brain can come back online. No mysticism. No debates. Just moves. Hook for urgency. 3 boring days now can save you from 3 chaotic months later. Stop. For 72 hours, suspend anything that spikes arousal. No fasting. No all-night practice. No psychedelic anything. No breath work with long retentions. No marathon sits. No posting revelations. No major decisions. The sentence you use is simple. I'm in acute care mode. Write it on a note and tape it where you'll see it. Sleep. Treat tonight like surgery. You're creating 8 to 9 dark hours, even if sleep feels impossible. Black out the room. Towels, tape, whatever works. Cover LEDs. Phone in another room on loud with one emergency contact saved as anchor. Set a wind down. Warm shower, light stretch, dim light, same few pages of a boring book. If you have a safe prescriber, ask for a short course of sleep medication and use it exactly as planned. If you don't, this is the time to go to urgent care or the ER and say the words. I haven't slept. I feel unsafe. I need help sleeping tonight. You're not asking for a diagnosis. You're asking for sedation and a plan. Safety. Remove means. If there are pills you could combine, give them to someone you trust or lock them away. If there are sharps, bundle and box them. If there are cords where you sleep, tidy them out of reach. Share your location with one person who will actually show up. Agree on a check-in schedule, morning and evening, same times, for 3 days. Decide together what triggers a welfare check. No response within 15 minutes after a missed check-in, for example. Put the local crisis number and one national line in your phone and on paper. Put your address on the paper too. When you're flooded, your own street name can vanish. Simplify. Eat, hydrate, move. 3 simple meals per day, even if small: protein, salt, warm. Soup, eggs and toast, yogurt with fruit, rice and beans. Add electrolytes or a pinch of salt to water twice daily. No caffeine, no nicotine if you can pause, no adaptogenic stimulants. Gentle movement only, 2 10-minute walks outside in daylight. No gyms, no sprints, no cold plunges. Set a device curfew 2 hours before bed. Screens off, notifications off. If you need sound, pick rain or brown noise. Limit inputs to what's neutral. Your brain needs quiet to downshift. Seek. Find one clinician with crisis experience, urgent care, ER, or your primary, and say the truth in plain words. I'm sleep deprived, scared, and not thinking clearly. I need a short-term sleep plan and a safety plan. If they reach for only a label, redirect. I'm open to evaluation. Right now I need to sleep safely. If there's a spiritually literate mentor who respects boundaries, loop them in after you sleep. Not before. Structure your hours like this. Repeat for 3 days. Morning. Light in your eyes within an hour of waking. 10 minutes outside minimum. First meal with protein and salt within 90 minutes. Text your anchor. Hours slept. First meal. Plan for a short walk. Midday. Second meal. Hydrate again. 5 minutes of slow breathing. Inhale 4, exhale 6 to 8, no holds. 1 microtask that protects function. Open mail and stack by type. Schedule 1 bill. Confirm 1 appointment. Afternoon. 10-minute daylight walk if safe. No podcasts about meaning. Familiar music only. Check meds plan with clinician if prescribed. Confirm tonight's wind down. Evening. Third meal, warm and simple. No screens 2 hours before bed. Phone charging outside the bedroom. Wind down routine. If your anchor can sit on a call while you settle, ask. Red lines for the 72 hours. No quitting jobs, ending relationships, or making vows. No driving if you haven't slept 6 hours the previous night. No posting about revelations. Put them in a notebook for later review. No isolation. If you live alone, ask your anchor to stay over or keep a live call line until lights out. No spiritual debates. If a thought insists, write one line and close the notebook. If suicidal thinking shows up as relief math, I could end this. Say it out loud to your anchor or clinician. Use their words if yours vanish. I'm having thoughts of not wanting to live. That sentence unlocks care. You're not failing a path, you're protecting your life. Finally, put one sentence on a card and carry it. My experience matters. My body needs care first. Read it every time you want to break the plan. 3 days of steadiness buys you choices. Choices bring you back. Long-term rebuild, 6-month roadmap. This stretch isn't about chasing light. It's about building a life that can carry light without cracking. Think seasons, not sprints. The work is steady, specific, and boring in the best way, because boring is where nervous systems heal. Simple proof point. Steady sleep, food, and routine cut relapse risk more than any hack. Keep the scaffolding. Let the meaning ride on top. Month 1 and 2 are about consistency and safe re-entry. Hold the sleep routine you fought for. Keep stimulants off or minimal. Lock a therapy cadence, weekly if possible, with a clinician who knows your dual-track plan. Add one standing appointment with a mentor who respects boundaries. Your social re-entry is gentle. 2 low-arousal contacts per week, max. Coffee with a calm friend, a walk with a neighbor, a game night where nobody explains the universe. Build a predictable week template. Fixed wake time, 3 meals, 2 daylight walks, 1 house reset block. Put recurring bills on auto, set calendar reminders for meds and check-ins, and keep a visible checklist on the fridge. Win small, repeatable days. Month 3 and 4 widen the circle. Now you start values projects and skill training. Choose one project aligned with the verbs you wrote earlier. Repair, serve, learn. Keep it tiny and measurable. 1 evening class, a weekly pantry shift, a hobby you can do without adrenaline. Add a financial repair plan. Call creditors with your appointment buddy. Set payment plans. Build a $300 emergency buffer, even if it takes 10 weeks. At work or school, return in graded steps. Half days for 2 weeks, then reassess. Protect your evenings, no late-night heroics. If you practice, do it supervised and gentle. Short meditations with a teacher who screens for sleep and food. No breath retentions, no marathon sits. Track early warning signs weekly, and rehearse your interrupts before you need them. Month 5 and 6 consolidate. You choose community on purpose, not by charisma. Visit multiple groups. Test for psychological safety. Do they normalize rest, collaborate with clinicians, and discourage fasting for vulnerable people? If yes, invest. If not, pass. Begin tapering extra supports only after 4 consecutive weeks of stable sleep, steady meals, and no red flags. That might mean spacing therapy to bi-weekly while keeping mentor check-ins monthly. Add service that sticks even when the glow fades. A 2-hour shift, a standing neighbor night, a quiet behind-the-scenes role. Bring in creative expression that doesn't require intensity. Sketching, singing with others, gardening, fixing what's broken. Let joy show up without needing to be peak. Your metrics are plain. Sleep, 7.5 to 9 hours at consistent times. Function, bills paid, basic chores done weekly, 1 dependable human contact, work or study hours you can sustain. Relapse signals, rising night scrolls, skipped meals, coincidence chasing, contempt for the ordinary, posting revelations, tightening circles. Joy without intensity. Laughter that lands on Tuesdays, music that warms without spinning, satisfaction from small completions. Review your metrics every Sunday with your buddy, green, yellow, or red. If you hit yellow twice, deploy the interrupts. Earlier night routine, salty meal, daylight, media curfew. Call the clinician if sleep slips. Boundaries keep this scaffold upright. Say no to pressure to go deeper when your body asks for steadier. No retreats in this window unless they're explicitly stabilization-focused and include sleep protections, meals, and exit plans. No new psychedelics. No new vows or dramatic life changes. No gurus as soul anchors. Keep the 90-day rule alive for major decisions, and reset it if you wobble. There will be tests disguised as invitations. A friend urges an all-night ceremony just to reconnect. A teacher promises fast-tracked awakening. An algorithm feeds you number lore at midnight. Your sentence is ready. I'm keeping the gains, sleep, food, routine, so the meaning can last. Then act it. Turn off the device, eat something warm, go to bed on time. Micro-stories show what this looks like. A barista who almost jumped from the overpass kept Thursday soup night with neighbors, paid 2 debts, learned to repair espresso machines, and joined a running group that meets at 7 a.m. He still carries a values card. He laughs more than he posts. A grad student who once stared at a shadow for assignments now tutors freshmen twice a week, sings in a community choir, and keeps her relapse plan taped inside a cabinet. Her mentor asks about sleep before archetypes. She thanks him every time. Long-term rebuild isn't punishment. It's how you keep what mattered. Stabilize, then strengthen. Let your days do the talking. The peak that almost broke you becomes a line you can carry, quietly, steadily, through a life that works. For families and helpers, be the anchor. Start with steadiness, not speeches. Keep your tone calm, your sentences short, your tasks practical. Feed them before you fix them. Prioritize sleep, food, and routine over debates about guides or destiny. Offer structure. I'll bring dinner at 6. We'll dim lights by 8. I'll sit nearby while you settle. Don't argue metaphysics. Say, we'll talk meaning after sleep. Don't shame, corner, or match intensity. Reduce. Inputs. Quiet room, soft light, no surprise visitors. Offer rides, bill sorting, pharmacy pickups. Safety first. Ask directly about suicidal thoughts. Lock away medications that can be combined. Set check-ins. Scripts help. I'm not here to disagree. I'm here to help you sleep and eat. Let's write that in your notebook for daylight. If you can't sleep by midnight, we'll call the clinician. No thresholds. No sleep 48 hours, escalating paranoia, suicidal talk. Seek urgent care. Guard your own capacity. Share shifts, schedule respite, consult a therapist, keep your crisis plan too. Awakening without grounding isn't freedom. It's a crash you don't owe your life to. If this helped, share it now. Someone you know is in the first 72 hours and needs a plan. Subscribe and watch our depersonalization deep dive next. Your calm can be the bridge back.